2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. This different stream, islands in the stream. That is what we are. Awesome. Yeah, sorry about that. Fucking yeah. When you go in sort of into the YouTube thing, it's supposed to be a big red button saying go live, and it wasn't there. So I don't know what happened. Nonetheless, here now. So, welcome to the Friday night live stream, Supercut, as we're going to call it, going forward. Because I'm going to blast through everything. You know how I tend to sort of take too long on a particular subject, and then I don't get to everything. I'm not doing that anymore. That's going to be... That's the old days, baby. That's the old days. So we're going to start. Welcome to Politics, Culture and Some Other Shit. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. For those of you who's going to be listening to this on the podcast, which is obviously most of you. Thanks for... Thanks for all the great feedback I got from the Ben Collins conversation. What a great guy. I've said it before. I think we're going to be hearing a lot more of him. Because the Southern government's starting to make moves now with regards to preparing for a new Ireland, having the conversation, which is it's sort of lighting a fire under their ass because they haven't really fucking been doing anything. I know Sinn Féin have got some sort of a conference going on in Belfast in October, I think it is. I'm going to go up to that. I'm going to bring up a wee sort of OB, outside broadcast kit, and see if I can get it chatting to some people. That's going to be fun. So if you fancy coming or going to that and having a wee chatty poos with me, that would be the thing to do. So we're going to blast through this. First thing up, right, here we go. Let me pull it up on the browser. I want to say solidarity with our brothers and sisters in there we go, Cuba. So it was big national holiday, big national celebration in Cuba during the week, July 26th. So if you don't know what July 26th and the significance of it for Cuba, I shall read it to you here real quick, just from Wikipedia. The 26th of July movement, Spanish Movimiento 26 de Julio, and you see it as M26-7 on flags. Oh, I should show you. Put that up first, actually. I'll put that up for you. I'll read away here. So there's some pictures of the glorious revolutionaries. So the 26th July movement was a Cuban vanguard revolutionary organization, and later a political party led by Fidel Castro. May he rest in peace. What a fucking guy. The movement's name commemorates its 26th July 1953 attack on army barracks in Santiago de Cuba in an attempt to start the overthrowing of the dictator Fulgencio Batista. This is considered one of the most important organizations among the Cuban Revolution. At the end of 1956, Castro established a guerrilla base in the Sierra Maestra. This base defeated the troops of Batista on the 31st of December 1958, setting in motion the Cuban Revolution and installing the government led by Manuel Urita Leo. The movement fought the Batista regime on both rural and urban fronts. The movement's main objectives were distribution of land to peasants, nationalisation, public services, industrialisation, honest elections, and large-scale education reform. So, there we go. In July 61, the 26th of July movement was one of the parties that integrated into the Integrated Revolutionary Organisation, as well as the Popular Socialist Party. 26th of March 62, the party dissolved from the United Party of Cuban Socialists, which held a communist ideology. So I could carry on reading that, but I'm not going to, because, as I said, I'm going to blast through these. I'm going to be quicker at this. So, I've read a couple of books on this subject, on the Cuban Revolution. It's fascinating. And I think one of the reasons that it maintains its sort of hold on the popular imagination is because it was a successful revolution. It was obviously its proximity to its super powerful neighbour, the United States, can't be overlooked whenever you're thinking about it. And it continues to be successful, and it's gone through so many. It's come through so many pressures played to it through financial, economic pressures brought on by the sanctions that the United States has had on it since its beginning, since the revolution started. But Cuba seems to be able to maintain itself, and that's to its great credit. And it's such a inspirational thing. And the thing that whenever you read, as I said, I've read a couple of books on the subject, and they're fascinating. There's a brilliant book, Fidel Castro, My Life. As I've mentioned before in this podcast, I think he could have picked a better title. I think he must have been trolling people when he did that. My Life, because that's the sort of, the Hitler-y one. Mein Kampf, same fucking, that's what it means in German. But, yeah, so there's that. And then I read there's a great book, Che Guevara, on his whole, it's the concise version of his life. I can't just remember the name of the author right now, but I learned a lot, and through reading those publications, you understand a little bit more about propaganda, and about the propaganda that's fired at you. Like the Cubans are communist, but Fidel Castro wasn't he's a socialist, but he was sort of pushed into the communist thing. Che Guevara and Raúl, they were communists. Raúl Castro, who obviously became the president after Fidel died, they were communists, and there was it gets into it, but there's a thing where whenever the revolution was successful, Fidel gave Raúl and Che jobs that were outside the city, away out in the sticks, looking after certain versions, because he wanted to be able to. He knew he was going to have to negotiate with the US going forward, and he wanted to be able to do it without the talk of communism going into it, because he knew obviously how much that would irk the Yanks, but it didn't matter. It ended up going that way anyway, and he did. He went to New York, and he tried to talk with them at the UN and all this sort, and the Yanks were having none of it. But yeah, so it's fascinating. It's a fucking an amazing place. Yeah, Damo says, is this a speed dating approach to covering topics in a podcast? Yeah, it's a speed dating approach. No, I tell you what it is. It's just, I'm going to call it going forward the Supercut. That's what I'm going to do, because I think it just kind of, if I just blast through them, because I get a bit irritated, because I do all the podcasts I've done, which have been quite a few now. I do so much preparation for them, and I never get to fucking talk about everything, because I waffle, as is my want. So there we go. So there, Cuba, Viva la Revolution. And it's brilliant. Love Cuba. Fan of Cuba. Never been, but a fan of the whole concept, the whole idea. And Damo sent me a couple of things during the week on Twitter, where we're talking about free ports and things like that. So we'll be reading those out again if I get if I have the time. Just contradicting myself, or just illustrating exactly what the problem is. So, right. Oh no, I'll do it at the end actually, because I've got a cyclist story. I saw a cyclist almost get fucking killed the other day, and I want to have a wee word about that. In such a stupid way. It's something that happens to me being a cyclist myself. It's something that happens to me all the fucking time, and it is rather poor. So, Next subject that we're going to talk about is going to be Mick Lynch. Oh, fuck, I could talk about Mick Lynch all day, couldn't you? So, the RMT, as you know, are on strike.
We've got a turn to the ultra-right, I believe. Truss is pulling...
Pause that. Why did that? Hold on. Let me just... I'll pull the volume down. Okay, there we go. Yeah. So, I'll play the video. There's a video playing on the screen there right now. For those of people listening to this podcast during the week, you obviously don't know what I'm talking about. If you don't, go over to the YouTube. Yeah, like, share, subscribe. If you fancy it, head over to the Patreon. Couple of £1 a month, that's all it is. And this, I'll talk about it after. So we know the RMT are on strike, and they're very powerful. They're very lefty, which is great. And they're calling it out like it is. I wanted to download some Mick Lynch videos today to show you, but to be honest with you, there was that fucking many of them. I got luck because I seen so many of them during the week, and him being interviewed in the television studios and on the picket line, and it was brilliant. And the one thing that I noticed, I don't know if you noticed this too, there was a complete different attitude coming from the studio TV presenters in the way that they were talking to Mick Lynch after he completely fucking rinsed them all the first time out when he was doing the first round of interviews. If you remember 3 weeks ago, Nick Ferrari, Sue Burley, and Piers Morgan talking complete shit and being very, very aggressive. They weren't this time. Well, I don't think Piers Morgan got another interview, but the rest of them weren't. It was brilliant. They were all, "Oh, Mr. Lynch, don't rinse me, don't behead me live on the TV," and they were so much more respectful. They were asking challenging questions, which is their want, which is their fucking job, to be fair. Although they are obviously ideologically bent that way, but they were just more conciliatory and less aggressive, I guess, or less disrespectful, I suppose. And it was great to see. I mean, and it's okay to be aggressive. It's okay to be challenging. It's okay to to ask the difficult questions, but the disrespect, no, that's not okay. And they definitely have been doing that. So it was great to see. So the RMT are back out on strike on, what was it, Thursday? Was that yesterday or the day before? Ahead of the Commonwealth Games starting. So the Commonwealth Games started yesterday, and with the opening ceremony. And one of the things that was thrown at them, they were saying that they deliberately planned the strike to coincide with the Commonwealth Games to cause disruption. Turns out that's not true at all. Quill surprise. Who's surprised to hear that? The way that the rules work is that once the pay offer goes to the members rejected the pay, and then they're balloted to go out and strike, and they have to do it within a certain period of time. The only day they could do it that wouldn't cause maximum disruption to the Commonwealth Games was Thursday. That was the only day they had. They had to do it within a certain time. That's the way the rules are. These things are regulated, unlike most of our corporations. But so there was all that. So check this video out. I'm going to play. This is a wee 10-minuter of Mick being awesome. So just check this out. You're going to enjoy this. He's being interviewed. This is on Joe Politics, and they're not trying to. They're not dicks. Let me put it that way. Not to Mick anyway. They're not. So let me just pull Mick up there.
A turn to the ultra-right, I believe. Truss is pulling Sunak with her in her wake, and he just seems to be following along. And if they have to outlaw us and outlaw the right to take action and outlaw to organise collectively, I think that's what their intention is. The trade unions are the most democratic structure in this society. There are still 8 million people in the trade union movement, and they are all democratically formulated. And what they're trying to do is make it impossible for us to organise and take us back to even beyond Victorian times, perhaps, back to medieval times, which may be where this Truss has emerged from. I don't know.
Do you believe the railway operators and the government are negotiating with you in good faith?
No, I don't. I think that they're being dictated to by the government. The government seems to have made this now a political football. We've seen Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak and this morning Grant Shapps make the RMT and railway workers some kind of political enemy. But the fact is he's responsible for the railway, he's responsible for Network Rail as the shareholder, and he has the right to dictate the terms in the train operating companies in the contracts that they've got, and he is responsible for industrial relations. So he needs to unlock this dispute and become a facilitator rather than a blocker. And if he can do that, we can get a settlement and move this dispute forward.
Why do you think it's politically beneficial for them to create this dispute?
Well, I think they've got so many problems in their own party and their own problems. They've had the peculiar period of Johnson, and now we've got a turn to the ultra-right, I believe. I think we've got a turn to an extreme right-wing position. Truss is pulling Sunak with her in her wake, and he just seems to be following along, and they're appealing to their base. And their base is a very narrow base, as we've seen, because they've got a tiny political party of membership, and they're appealing to that. And I think they just want to say that trade unions are a thing of the past, that effective trade union action and strike action will no longer be tolerated in this country. And if they have to outlaw us and outlaw the right to take action and outlaw to organise collectively, I think that's what their intention is. We'll have to see how they get on with that on the streets, in Parliament, and in campaigning, but we're determined to fight that, and we think we'll get a response from working people all around the country.
Well, Sunak and Truss both said in that Tory leadership debate, didn't they? They were asked, would you outlaw striking on essential services? And they both said yes, immediately.
Yeah, and it's not just that. They're going to make the threshold so high that it would be impossible almost to get these lawful ballots. And if they put that in for local councillors or even MPs, if every MP had to get 50% of the vote on a 50% turnout, we'd have about 100 people in Parliament, which might be a good thing, by the way, but there wouldn't be any councils sitting in this country. And it's an attack on democracy. The trade unions are the most democratic structure in this society. There are still 8 million people in the trade union movement, and they are all democratically formulated. And what they're trying to do is make it impossible for us to organise and take us back to even beyond Victorian times, perhaps, back to medieval times, which may be where this Truss has emerged from. I don't know.
Obviously, this strike today is about railway workers, and it's about their rights and their working conditions. But as you've just mentioned, there's a broader movement here. There's a broader trade union movement here.
Yeah.
What do you see as the role of the trade unions in modern Britain?
Well, the role of the trade unions has got to be to go back into working class communities and put the values that we stood for, the values of community, solidarity, collective action, and the ability to fight and the ability to learn how to campaign and articulate yourself. All of those are important strands of what trade unions stand for. And then it's to move.
And I'm going to jump in there. One of the things that's one of the reasons that I think that Mick Lynch is so remarkable. And Eddie Dempsey's there in the video behind him. He's his deputy, and he's equally good, I would say. He's concise. He's to the point, but he speaks the language of the union, of the union, of the working class, of socialism, and even his accent. You don't hear that on the TV. Certainly don't hear it on the news channels. Talking the language of politics. Do you know what I mean? And that's why, he's gone viral around the world. I watch many American podcasts. I've subscribed to Jimmy Dore, and there's Max Blumenthal and Aaron Maté and your woman Halper and all these sort of American leftists, and they all love this guy. They're all talking about him. So he's gone viral. And the simple reason is this. These people have been kept off the airwaves, be it, well, I think deliberately, for decades now. So whenever you hear the language of the working class, whenever you hear the language of wealth distribution, redistribution of wealth, and he says it clear, this isn't good enough. There's too much money going in one direction. Well then, And it resonated with everyone. Now, the timing is perfect. If you'd have done it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it mightn't have resonated so strongly. But the reality is everyone's feeling the pinch. And as we'll get to in a minute, we've got eyes. We can see with our own eyes the greed, the corporate greed that's causing the inflation. And then there's the argument they say about the inflationary argument. You can't ask for a pay raise because of it'll create inflation. Well, Mick Lynch has come out this week and he said, well, that doesn't stand to reason because we've had inflation without the pay raise. The problem is greed, is corporate greed, and I'm sure you've heard him say that or similar things to it. You know, just follow the logic. If you ask for a pay raise, it's going to create inflation. Well, we've already got inflation, so there's something else causing the inflation. It's not a pay raise, because no one's got the fucking pay raise. So what's causing it? And Mick and others have been positing the massive corporate greed, the massive amounts of money that have been paid out to shareholders in dividends. So this is unearned income. This is people that don't get up for work in the morning. And this is one of the tenets of basic socialism and Marxism. It's unearned. You haven't done anything for it. You've bought shares with probably inherited wealth and you get paid for that, and that's on the back of someone else's labour. So then the other argument goes, well those there are governments and there are things they have pension funds all invested into those shareholders. Well, that's fair enough. Well, why don't we just take those profits and provide a decent pension for them instead of giving half of it, more than half, most of it, to hedge funds and the greediest creatures that have ever existed. Just take that money instead and just give them a fucking pension, right? So there's so many logical fallacies involved in the arguments that people are throwing at the likes of Mick Lynch and others. And there are many others. The communications workers unions going out on strike. The doctors are, the NHS's, there's strands within the NHS going. So and now this week I've heard them talking about organising a general strike. Whoo, that's going to be a big fucking deal. So back to Mick.
Move it forward into effective campaigning, political campaigning and industrial campaigning, making wins for working people so that they win their small campaigns and win bigger campaigns, and then turn that into political and societal change. That sounds like a big agenda, but it starts by being rooted back in those communities, and it starts with fighting for pay and conditions. If you can fight on pay and conditions, you can move on to the bigger agenda about changing our society for the better. So we've got to do that. I think there is a sign now that the trade unions are prepared to do it. We've got to get a bit of dynamism, we've got to get a bit of profile in working class communities and win back the red wall, which is now the blue wall, not just to the Labour Party but to trade union values, so that it's rooted amongst working people as an everyday experience. Being in a trade union is a good and positive thing. So that's our role, to win back our people to our values.
Talking about working class communities, you're talking about solidarity, and talking to Eddie, and I've heard you say elsewhere, talking about redistribution of wealth as well.
Yes.
Do you think Keir Starmer's Labour Party stands for those same things?
Well, we're going to find out. He's prevaricating and he's avoiding the question. We've been saying very clearly over the past couple of months that what this dispute is really about is the redistribution of wealth, and it's about the polarisation of power and wealth in this society. There are too many people struggling at the bottom of the spectrum who are on low pay with very poor conditions and precarious work. There's a strata of people in the middle, obviously, but they're struggling as well, many of them. People on reasonable salaries, you might say 30,000 is a reasonable salary, or 40,000, but many of those people are struggling now with housing costs and other costs. And the people at the top are doing really well because profits are up, incomes from dividends are up. There is no sign that there's any austerity for the rich and the wealthy in this society or in societies around the globe. We've got to change that. We've got to change it so that there is a better distribution, and people have got to understand fundamental economic issues, and it's the role of the unions to teach people that and guide them in a direction where we can get fairness and equality in society.
We were talking about Keir Starmer there, Mick, and yesterday he was asked about whether or not he would like to see a pay rise for nurses and other public sector workers match inflation, and he couldn't provide an answer to that question. Can you provide an answer to that question?
I can provide an answer to that question. I can provide an answer to Keir Starmer. He's got to ride this wave of solidarity that we're getting. He's got to join into working people's experience.
Jumping in there again, just on fucking Keir Starmer, I genuinely believe that if the Tories called a general election, they would win again. That's how fucking useless Keir Starmer and the Labour Party are. They are fucking awful. And Keir Starmer actually sacked the shadow transport minister, for turning up on the picket line showing solidarity with the striking workers, the RMT workers. Now, Starmer has since come out and said, because he was making a policy on the hoof and all this, fucking bullshit. What a load of shit. Lies. God damn it, lies. Unbelievable. Really, really weak. I'm going to show you a little video about that in a second as well, so just hang on in there. We'll get back to Mick.
Not just their experience of being in dispute, but their everyday experience, and show he recognises that. And the answer is simple. Working class people need a pay rise, and the answer to the cost of living crisis is through the pay packet. It's not through doles that you get from windfall taxes and occasional bailouts to working people. It's the pay packet, permanent increases in people's spending power through wages. And he's got to understand that, and he's got a promise now to fund the public sector properly, to give people a set of employment rights that are meaningful every day in the workplace. He's got to unshackle the unions, and he's got to give us the ability to negotiate freely for the deal that working class people need off corporate Britain and off the government. So he's got to pull his bootstraps up and get on with the job of leading the Labour movement, and not just prevaricating and trying to appeal to the Daily Mail and the Telegraph.
I mean, as someone with progressive politics, I see the likes of yourself, I see the likes of Eddie going out and articulating these arguments, making a case for a redistribution of wealth, making a case for a progressive politics. Those are the politics that you have. I find it frustrating. Do you find it frustrating that you are the people sort of being the message carriers for this rather than the Labour front bench?
I found it extremely... I'm not a professional politician, so it's frustrating. The people that are paid to do this job, that working class people put into these positions and the Labour Party put into it, have got to articulate values. So values come first, permanent values that we can stand up for. Council housing, properly funded services, public ownership as a principle, not just a convenience or a temporary policy. And then policies follow after you express your values. And what Starmer has got to do is find a way to articulate his values and then turn that into policies which suit the needs of the day. And that will suit the election, and it will suit the mid-term when he gets elected, which hopefully he will, and then it will take him into the next election after that if he can win power more permanently. But if he can't express his values, he's never going to get policies that appeal to people. Values first, then particular policies. And he's got to find a way to do that.
What do you think his values are?
I think his values are to not say anything controversial, it seems. I don't know. I've not heard him articulate values apart from bland tropes or whatever you want to call them. So it's hard for me to articulate what he stands for. But worse than that, it's hard for people in Rotherham and Barnsley and Glasgow and South Wales and Hackney or wherever else he's appealing to understand what his values are and what he will deliver when he gets into power. And if he's not careful, he'll never get into power because people will never know what they're going to get from him when he gets there.
Over the course of the morning, you've had large sections of the broadcast media, the print media here, talking to you, listening to your ideas, engaging with you. Are you pleased to see the national media engaging with the RMT and with the strikes in this way?
Well, it's good that that's happening, and it's good that we've got a profile. I'm very conscious, though, that I've got to get a deal. Me and my officers and our reps have got to negotiate a deal. So it's no good having a profile if you don't get a meaningful deal and the dispute doesn't make headway. It's a shame that the Labour Party can't get this kind of coverage. When they do a press release. I understand that Keir Starmer did an event in Liverpool the other day and barely anyone turned up, and certainly there was very, very little applause. So if he can get his profile up through expressing his values and getting a profile in the media, we might have a chance of changing the political and economic scene in this country. So I wish him well in that, but I think if he stands up and identifies himself with change, he's got a chance of doing it. So I'm pleased we got the profile, but I'll be even more pleased when we get a settlement that we can agree to.
Absolutely. What's your view of the way the media have framed this industrial action? Because I know in the past it's sort of an inconvenience to workers trying to get into wherever, or are the trade unions being greedy by asking for a pay rise? What's your view of the way you've been framed in the media?
Well, I think they framed it in one way, that we were hopeless, we were going to get no support, that we were just a bunch of moronic militants. But I think that lens has changed now. And I think the timing has been good because many people are ready for change, and many workers. And let's not forget, we've got full employment. It's a really peculiar economy. We've got full employment and falling real wages. So people have got less money in their pocket, even though they're working in full-time jobs. So it's been timely in the sense that it's chiming and is in sync with what a lot of people have experienced. So the media in some ways have had to concede that we've had a lot of support. They've seen the support we've been getting on the picket lines and on social media. So they've changed that a bit. Hopefully they'll bring the government and the powers that be more to task and scrutinise what they're doing and not just keep swallowing the propaganda. There's still a fair bit of that, but we are getting a better shake than we may have got 2 years ago, for instance, when we would have just been seen as some kind of public enemy. But I don't think we are. I think we're on the side of the workers and we're getting a lot of support.
You're right, there's the context here. It's not just about union members, it's not just about railway workers. There's a broader societal context to this.
Yeah, it's about equality. It's about getting a fair shake. Anyway, I've run out now. I'm going to finish.
Good.
So there we go. Fucking Mick Lynch. What a guy. Completely love this dude. And I wish we'd more fucking like him. Many more like him. And isn't this the problem? We've been coward in the working class. The lack of political knowledge, but and the problem always comes, it seems to me, when you're looking at it through your historical lens. It always seems to come whenever times are good, as in, you're not in a recession. That seems to be when the working class drop the ball and they allow themselves to become victims in the future. And it's a big lesson, that, I think, and it's something that we need to learn and we need to remember. I watched a few years ago. Was it the cops? Maybe it wasn't the cops. It was either the cops or the fire brigade, and they negotiated away their right to strike for a pay rise, and I couldn't fucking believe it. In England this was, and I just couldn't believe that one. That's just a fucking dumbest, short-sightedest thing I've ever seen. Breathtaking. And it's always in times of plenty, in times of good. And then on to another point that Mick was talking about, we spoke about him a second ago, Keir Starmer. I mean, Keir Starmer is shocking. I mean, absolutely shocking. I have a video here where someone is going to communicate.
When a Labour leader stops backing the interests of Labour over those of capital, you've got a problem. The railways are extremely profitable.
So let me just...
The shareholders and the chief executives take a huge amount of money whilst work.
Turn the audio up on this. Give me a second. I can't remember who this guy is. I'll find out while you're watching and let you know. So have a listen to this. This is Keir Starmer.
When a Labour leader stops backing the interests of Labour over those of capital, you've got a problem. The railways are extremely profitable. The shareholders and the chief executives take a huge amount of money, whilst workers' pay has got absolutely squashed even before the rise in inflation. When Keir Starmer became leader of the Labour Party, he made pledges to stick with actually working for collective action. Now, I want the Tories out. I want Labour to win, but not at any cost. And I'm not simply going to accept the fact that actually, when you start sacking members of your own cabinet for attending strike action, which is necessary as a collective bargaining chip, what are you doing? You're playing into the Tories' hands. Because essentially, you're just becoming just like them. Just another shade of blue. It's not good enough. It has to stop. It's self-defeating. It's terrible optics. It's bad politics. And it makes you look, Keir Starmer, like a fucking dickhead. When a Labour...
There we go. Couldn't put it better myself. That guy is called Julian Rubinstein. I don't know who he is, but he's a BAFTA winning actor, I think, or TV presenter. I don't watch British TV much, not because I'm an Irish nationalist. It sounded a wee bit racist, didn't it? It's not that. I don't like it. It's all fucking bullshit. That's not true. I do like British TV. I just, But anyway, I don't know what I was trying to say there when I said that. That was a very bizarre way of tackling that, approaching that. Makes me sound like an awful racialist. I'm not. I swear I'm not. Yeah. So, Rail and Maritime Transport Union, Mick Lynch, says he would support a general strike. There he is there. St. Michael. He said he would support a general strike if Liz Truss becomes Prime Minister and brings in anti-union legislation. Mr. Lynch called for an enormous response from the Labour movement if Ms. Truss's promised crackdown on trade unions comes into effect, and warned it would drive workers back to Victorian times. I'm not going to read any more of that because it's depressing. Excuse me. Yeah, it looks like Liz Truss is going to become the new... I can't believe I'm fucking saying this. It looks like Liz Truss is going to become the Prime Minister. Liz Truss is going to become the fucking Prime Minister. Now, can you remember? I did a podcast titled "Is Liz Truss an Idiot?" a few weeks ago. You remember? I got a message. Someone actually commented under the video. He typed into YouTube, "Is Liz Truss an idiot?" and my video came up. So, someone is not connected to our little community. And he watched the video and he was glad. He said, "Oh, thanks very much." Yes, I really needed to see that. Some English fella is brilliant. I mean, she's a fucking half-wit and she's going to be the Prime Minister because, well, it's just, I mean, if Boris Johnson can become Prime Minister, it's fucking game over. Anybody could become Prime Minister, I think, as long as you're monstrous enough. And you got to remember the things that they're looking to ban the right to strike. They're putting more effort into this Rwanda deal for refugees, which is 120 million, and it was only 200 refugees that Rwanda was going to take. And now fucking Priti Patel. If Liz Truss is the stupidest woman in Parliament, Priti Patel is the most evil. She's down in Rwanda at the minute and has shook hands on a renegotiated deal. And, it'll be cheaper. It's 200 refugees and it's 120 million pounds it's going to cost to get them down to Rwanda. I mean, you could give them all about 700 grand each. You go and buy a nice house and put the kids through school. No, obviously that's ridiculous. And sending them to Rwanda isn't. Yeah, so there you go. Here's a demo on the YouTubes. The one overriding message I get from Mick Lynch interviews is that he's on the side of the workers, that he understands the worry and stress that ordinary people are feeling and he's fighting for them. Starmer and Labour need to get this message across. Didn't Starmer promise that he would renationalise the railways, amongst other things, in the leadership campaign to be the Labour leader, and has ditched that pledge this week? Exactly. That's exactly it. And whenever he took over from Corbyn, he said that the Labour manifesto going forward, because the Labour manifesto was very, very popular, right? The Labour manifesto was going to remain in place. And he's just, step by step, just moved away from that and disemboweled it. So, yeah. The demo says here, try saying Liz Truss is going to become Prime Minister with a straight face. I can't believe it. I swear to fucking God. Of all the things, so long as my fucking butthole pointed south, I never fucking thought Liz Truss was going to be Prime Minister. I mean, who the fuck did, to be fair? Who did? Who thought that Liz Truss was going to be the Prime Minister? I don't even think Liz Truss really thought that. It's unbelievable. It really is unbelievable. So there we go. Of one wee... Yeah. So let's move on. I'll do this wee story here. So this is a good one. So Claire Daly, I know you know who Claire Daly is. So Claire Daly is an MEP. Let me just get the story up here on my other monitor. And then we're going to talk about Nancy Pelosi, Leader of the House in America, and her corruption is genuinely beyond belief. Sorry, just let me tidy my screen up here. I need to get this. Stay with me. I'm here. So Claire Daly is an MEP. She's an Irish MEP. And her and another guy called Mick, can't remember. I do like him though, because he turns up at the European Parliament, and he looks like he should be fucking working the roller coaster at a travelling fun fair. To be honest with you, he's luminous pink t-shirts and all. I'd say he's no stranger to a wee joint, you know. But him and this lady Claire often go into the European Parliament and sort of call it out, really, you know, and say whatever. But this week she was put on. So I'll read it out here. So let's throw the title card up there. Irish MP. Actually, no. Let me not do that. Let me do this, and then.
But what is much more insidious and what...
So there she is. So, Irish MP... I'll read this article first. This is from The Independent. Real quick. Irish MP Claire Daly has responded after she was put on a list compiled by Ukraine's Secret Service, who claims promote narratives consonant with Russian propaganda. Now that is a fucking open-ended statement right there. Promote narratives consonant with Russian propaganda. Wow. The list includes 72, and I heard it said today, first to start with a list, and then if you're on a list, then the list becomes a target, you know, so it's not good. It's not a great thing. So she's been consistently calling out NATO, the US, and she's constantly frames her kickbacks against these organisations by saying, don't accuse me of being pro-Putin, and I'm saying it myself, not pro-Putin, not pro-Russia in this instance. They're all wrong. The war crimes have been committed. But that this Ukraine thing is anything other than a fucking US proxy war in order to funnel American taxpayers' money through the military-industrial complex is, if it's anything, you can't tell me it's anything other than that. That's exactly what it fucking is, and it's disgusting. So she's constantly calling these people out, and now she's been put on a list. So Ms. Daly is the only Irish figure on the list. Others include US Republican Senator Rand Paul, former Democratic Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, and US journalist Glenn Greenwald. Glenn Greenwald is brilliant. The list, which is titled "Speakers Who Promote Narratives Consonant with Russian Propaganda." Again, I'm going to say it. That you can't. They're making it out like it's an accusation. What does it mean? It's so wide of a sweep of a statement. But anyway, it was published by the Centre for Countering Disinformation, a unit within the National Security and Defence Council of Ukraine, which is headed by President Volodymyr Zelensky. Ms. Daly is being accused of sharing two narratives: that sanctions against Russia make innocent people suffer. What the fuck is controversial about that? That's a fact. And that the Ukrainian conflict is a proxy war between NATO and Russia. Just said it myself. It's exactly what it is. In a statement issued to the Independent IE this morning, Ms. Daly said it was a blacklist issued by a Ukrainian government propaganda department. I don't know anything about that. Left-wing MEP has been critical of NATO and Western countries' response to Russia's invasion, as well as the invasion itself, added that the West's intervention has only prolonged the war, contributing to continuing death and destruction. Both comments attributed to me are absolutely correct, and I stand over them. Fair play to you, the girl, you. Increasingly, it is the ordinary citizens in Europe who are paying the price of the sanctions, and it is only getting worse as the gas is turned down, she said. Russia is responsible for starting the war, but the role of the international community should be to help end it with diplomatic efforts seeking to secure ceasefire and a negotiated peace. This has been rejected by the US and NATO, who have instead decided to use Ukraine to conduct a war with Russia and its ordinary citizens in Ukraine. Russia and Europe are now who are now Ukraine. It is the ordinary citizens in Ukraine, Russia and Europe who are now suffering. It is not Russian propaganda. It is my opinion, shared by many internationally. Ms. Daly said the list is not a credible document, adding it is an outrageous attempt to censor international opinion from a government that has already outlawed opposition parties, independent media and purged of many of its officials. Now, I will say this. If someone, correct me here if I'm wrong, right? So it is one of those weird things. So the Ukrainian government has outlawed opposition parties and media organisations within Ukraine that go against the official narrative within Ukraine. But I will say this, I've seen that said a lot, and I don't know, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, is it not usual for countries who are at war to do the likes of that? Is that not, you know, if you're being invaded, I'm talking about, which is what's happening with Ukraine and Russia, is that not normal? Did that not happen in World War II and shit and all that? And maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong about this. You know, freedom of speech and everything is paramount in these instances, of course. But in all instances, it's just one of those things where I am unsure about that. I know if my country was being invaded, I would be kind of going, no, listen, shut the fuck up. If you're going to go on our news or write in our newspapers that the invader is to be sympathised with, I would be. I'm not saying that. Don't trying to understand the point I'm trying to make. I kind of understand why. I'm not saying that the Zelensky government is right and correct in what they're doing, but I'm just saying, is that not normal? And if you were in that position, would you maybe, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, just fucking tell me. Don't be giving me any abuse. Just let me know. So Ms. Daly continued, the list continues a diverse group of people who have next to nothing in common politically, except that they are all critical of NATO and Western policy on Ukraine. That's what democracy is, having the right to express an opinion and have a different view. That Ukraine is attempting to shut down and narrow the range of ideas expressed in our societies is a mirror image of the behaviour we rightly criticise Russia for. There you go. The purpose of this list and the consequences of being put on it are not specified, but it certainly belies any notion of Ukraine's government being committed Democrats. Yeah, there you go. So here's Claire Daly in her own words. Check this out.
But what is much more insidious and what people don't seem to be noticing really is the US and NATO propaganda, which members seem to be marinating in on a daily basis. I mean, we are a European Union Parliament committee, and we seem to be incapable of having a single hearing of this committee, that we don't have someone from NATO or an Atlantic think tank coming in masquerading as a neutral expert. Now, the expertise that we've had here today from the Barrish Centre for Defence.
Sorry, I should have given you context for that video. So this was a committee that was taking place within the European Union Parliament, and there was an expert come in as to give testimony, as she's just said, from the Barrish Centre for Defence, and Claire Daly is pointing out that these people are far from independent, as she is about to enlighten us. Check it out.
And I welcome the person's view. They are entitled to their opinion, but it is not a neutral opinion. And I remind colleagues of what we voted on in the Cagnetta report in terms of these hearings, because what we said is that we had to undertake to ensure that all organisations that are given an input in the course of parliamentary work into the development of policy should be fully transparent, independent and free from conflicts of interest. Now, what we have with the Barish Centre is information manipulation from a foreign actor. This is a DC-based 501c non-profit organisation. It has a national alumni network with figures from the tops of every US and state corporate power. National Endowment for Democracy, Lockheed Martin, the US Marine Corps, the Officer of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Booz Allen Hamilton, the Department of Homeland Security, and on and on. It'd take me 10 minutes to list out these worthies who are behind this organisation. So I have to say they're entitled to their view. It's not a neutral view. And for a European Parliament committee to fight Russian propaganda by embracing the propaganda of its adversity does ourselves no favours. And a lot of the examples that colleagues have given here today, frankly, are differences of opinions that people have.
So there we go. So she nailed it. Brilliant. Fair play to you, Claire Daly. And the guy whose name I couldn't remember, who you see in the video, those of you listen to this on your podcast won't see, but there's a scruffy looking fucker sitting beside her. That's Mick Wallace is his name. So yeah, I'm sure most of you probably know this anyway. So, onwards. Right. So, the next one is this fucking ghoul, Nancy Pelosi. Now, why is she in the news? I tried to download a video about that. Maybe did I? Let me just check. Just want to see if I did or not. Pretty sure I did, but never got it loaded in. No, I didn't. So it doesn't matter. I'll just explain it. So Nancy Pelosi is the leader of the House. She's a leader of the House Democrats, what they call them, right? So she is now in the process. She said she's going to go on a Far Eastern tour, and she's going to go and visit Taiwan as a part of her travel plans. So here in Vox, let me just, yeah. So here we go. I'll just throw that up on the screen for you so you can see what I'm reading from. So this is in Vox. The drama over Nancy Pelosi's Taiwan travel plans briefly explained, which is good. We want brief. How reckless can a trip to Taiwan be? So if you don't know, this is the crack. For House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, potential travel plans have already caused a domestic political debate and a minor foreign policy fracas. Straight away there, minor. I definitely would not use the word minor to describe this is what's going on here. China, we'll get to it. On Monday, Taiwan held routine air raid drills amid fears that China, antagonised by a senior American representative planning to travel there, may pursue military escalation against Taiwan, the neighbouring democratic island that Beijing claims to own. Very fucking the language here. So everyone from President Joe Biden to Trump alumni to a former Speaker of the House has been weighing in on Pelosi's itinerary. So let me just, the bit here is at the bottom, so let's do this. The ambiguity around US-Taiwan relations is head-spinning for those not fully proficient in the one China policy, which has been in effect since the 1970s. Officially, the US recognises China's claim over Taiwan, but does not endorse that claim. The US officially says it doesn't support Taiwan's independence, but ensuring Taiwan's autonomy is central to US actions in Asia. And Pelosi's prospective visit to Taiwan may upset the delicate equilibrium. There are no formal diplomatic ties between the US and Taiwan, but plenty of unofficial ties. Relations are dictated by a series of diplomatic protocols and laws. The Taiwan Relations Act, etc. Let's get on with it. As President Biden has sparked controversy by describing the commitment we made to defend Taiwan if China were to attack it, although US policy holds out no such commitment, Biden's persistent, unscripted comments on this have led many to speculate that he's changing policy. Even a tiny wording change is a big deal. When the US State Department changes a sentence on its website, China issues a formal condemnation. So the president, contradicting his own government several times, is either undermining himself or poking China. After each episode, the White House has downplayed the comments as, in essence, Biden being Biden. So there's a thing called the One China policy, and it was laid out in the Nixon administration, way back as far as that, and it was a part of the opening up of China, envisaged by what do you call him? He's still alive, that guy. I can't remember his name. It'll come to me in a second. But it was a part of this opening up of China. And Nixon went over there and met the leaders and everybody at the time, and it's been that way ever since. And now Nancy Pelosi's going to wander over and get involved. Now, why does she want to get involved? So here's an article from Foreign Policy magazine, our Foreign Policy website. I'm not going to read it all, just give you the headlines. US Speaker of the House of Representatives Nancy Pelosi is set to leave. It wouldn't. Now, that's the language in this is a little bit more. They call it a minor fracas in Vox. This is not a minor fracas. The Chinese have, for the first time, have said publicly, "Do not fucking do this. This is bad. If you do this, we will respond, and you won't like what we're going to do." There was a 2-hour phone call between Biden and Xi Jinping, the leader of the Chinese Communist Party, and he said that in the article, or in the phone call. It wouldn't be the first visit of a House Speaker who is second in line to the presidency to the island. Newt Gingrich showed up there more than a quarter of a century ago, but instead of treating the trip like a regular one-off congressional visit to Taiwan, which usually prompts a sternly worded letter, China has responded to the potential of Pelosi visiting the island by repeatedly upbraiding American counterparts, leaving the Biden administration wondering if Beijing is serious about provoking another crisis in the Taiwan Strait over the speaker's arrival. So again, I'm going to take issue with the language there. If Beijing is serious about provoking another crisis in the Taiwan Strait, if Beijing is serious about so Beijing is provoking the crisis. It's not Nancy Pelosi. Yeah. So we can see where that's going. There's a little bit more from that one. This is from who said this? Oh yeah. My sense is that there's a miscalculation made on the part of the Speaker's office in terms of the timing for this. Said a Republican congressional aide. It was always likely the timing of this particular thing, given some of the things that are happening on the ground in the mainland, was going to be uniquely provocative. So there's the US stomping around the world, fucking sticking its boot in. Now, this is the point of this. So let's get to it. Oh yeah, we haven't got there yet. That's only me just laying it out for you. So, what is Nancy Pelosi famous for? Let me throw this up on the screen here for you. So you can see on the browser there, right? Nancy Pelosi's husband buys millions in computer chip stocks before big subsidy vote. Now, Nancy Pelosi has become, and her family, they're 100 millionaires, and they become rich while she served in public office. Right? So, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband purchased up to £5 million stock options on a computer chip company ahead of a vote on legislation next week that would deliver billions of dollars in subsidies. July 16th. That vote has passed since then, right? It would deliver billions of dollars in subsidies to boost the microchip manufacturing industry. Paul Pelosi purchased on June 17 20,000 shares of NVIDIA, a top semiconductor company worth between 1 million and 5 million. Senators are expected to convene as early as Tuesday to vote on a bipartisan competition bill to set aside $52 billion to boost domestic semiconductor manufacturing and give tax credits for production. Now, the Chinese, obviously, a lot of our computer chips and conductors and things, they're manufactured in China. So the Chinese already issued a sort of a statement saying, listen, if you do this, you're going to upset the entire global computer chip manufacturing market, which may be the point, maybe what the Americans want. I don't know enough about that sort of thing to comment on it, but back to the article. It certainly raises the specter that Paul Pelosi could have access to some insider legislative information. Oh yeah, you think? This is the reason why there is a stock. Where do you hear this? This is fucking brilliant. This is the reason why there is a stock trading app that exclusively monitors Paul Pelosi's activity, and then its followers do likewise. They make that much money on the stock market, right? Pelosi is an avid stock trader who could face jail time for an alleged drunk driving after getting into a car crash in May. Also sold 10,000 shares of Visa worth between 1 and 5 million. Anyway, doesn't matter. Well, it doesn't matter. It is the fucking point. But here's the point. NVIDIA. This is the company, right? NVIDIA. They make the chips. Where are they based? Taiwan. Look at this shit. They're based in fucking Taiwan. There's a fucking Instagram page. NVIDIA Taiwan. NVIDIA, commonly known as NVIDIA Corporation, it's an American company based in Delaware. Where does it say it here on this now? Just want to see. Well, it's not on it, but this is the point. This is the fucking point. What the speculation that's being made is that Nancy Pelosi is going to Taiwan as some sort of I don't know why. It's about stock market trading so they just passed this $50 billion plus bill ahead of her going, and then she says, I'm going to go to Taiwan, and her husband has bought millions of dollars worth of stock in this company ahead of her. These things, now you say that sounds a bit conspiratorial, Andy. It's not. Don't be naive. These things are. This is why she's going. And this woman is such a fucking ghoul. She's prepared to risk war with China in order to boost her stock portfolio a little bit. Now, I don't know what it is that she's going to do because I don't own stocks. You might be surprised to know. But this is, it's breathtaking. So, yeah, so keep an eye on that one. I think it's very interesting. It's very interesting because it's frightening, really. But, yeah. So there you go. And if you think that sounds a little bit too conspiratorial or a bit too sort of conspiracy theorist, it's not. It's not. They wait a few months and it'll all come out and whatever, you know. So let's move on. Last story. Last thing. We're going to talk about. Now this is. So I wanted to talk about the energy price rise.
Could this be Vladimir Putin's?
Right, I wanted to talk about the energy price rises. So I saw a video during the week where Martin Lewis, the money saving expert guy, was on talking, and he was basically warning. He said, "Listen, there's going to be fucking riots if we don't stop this." So I went looking for the video so I could download it and play it for you. And the only version of it I could find was this. And the way they framed this, it's unbelievable. Now, he's in it towards the end, but basically, it's Vladimir Putin's fault that Europe decided to stop buying his gas, Russia's gas. It's Vladimir. Now, don't get that straight. It's Vladimir Putin's fault that European Union countries stopped buying his country's products. That's Vladimir Putin's fault. Oh, I did get the bloody Nancy Pelosi video. Where is it? Oh no. No, I didn't. So, check this out. Yeah, so I'll play this. This is fucking pathetic. It's just, and if, I don't know if you watch the news or whatever, but I don't watch ITV or BBC News anymore. I just don't. I just can't be fucking bothered. It's just horrible. I'm not doing it to myself. And so when I saw this, it kind of blew me away a wee bit. So check it out.
Could this be Vladimir Putin's most powerful weapon? The gas fields of Siberia help fuel Europe. Now Russia is steadily strangling supply lines. Gas flows through this pipeline under the Baltic Sea to Germany, but Russia has cut it to a fifth of its normal capacity, dramatically pushing up wholesale prices. Maintenance issues, claims Russia, but critics...
They've put it up. The fucking European countries haven't been buying it. They told them they're not going to buy it.
Say it's retaliation for Europe's support of Ukraine. What we're seeing here is a power play, says the German government spokesperson, and we won't let ourselves be impressed by that. It will impact households here. While the UK gets little of its gas directly from Russia, costs are determined by global markets. As demand goes up, so do prices. In January, before the war in Ukraine, the energy price cap meant the average household spent just under £1,300 on their gas and electricity. But in April, it rose to almost £2,000. Now, analysts predict it could reach nearly £3,500 in the autumn and almost £4,000 by January next year, meaning the typical household faces paying £500 a month.
The impact of it is frankly catastrophic. What we need is a willingness to take action and to grasp this, to make sure there are millions of people in this country who don't face the choice between starvation and freezing this winter. And it is looking like that is a realistic choice if nothing is done for many.
Observers say it's all part of Putin's strategy for Ukraine.
I just listen. I don't know what Putin's strategy for Ukraine is, and it's not like I don't care. I do care greatly. I care about the ordinary working class man and woman and families that are having their lives decimated. That's what I care about. But I went looking for that video and I found it buried in this fucking propaganda piece. You know, it's that was full of so much misinformation. It's quite frankly staggering. Now, we're going to finish on this. As I said, I'm blasting through these. I'm quite happy with the way this has gone tonight. So, fury as energy firms post record profits while squeezed Brits face monthly bills of £500. So they reckon that by January, your gas bill, your energy bill could be £500 a month. Energy firms have infuriated squeezed Brits. What is this from? LBC.co.uk. After posting record profits while they face soaring gas bills, Shell broke its profit record for the second consecutive quarter, raking in £9.5 billion, whilst British gas owner Centrica posted operating profits of £1.4 billion in the 6 months to the end of June, an increase of 5-fold on the same period, 2021. ExxonMobil, Chevron and BP are also expected to post strong results soon. That is despite warnings from consultancy group BFY warning that bills could hit £500 for January next year and expects the price cap to hit £3,850 between then and April. Fuck me. Money-saving expert Martin Lewis tweeted, "I'm not focused on politics here. I'm focused on practicals." Practicals is politics, Martin. "We need action. We have a government, but it is said that it won't make big decisions until the new PM is in. So get the current and potential PMs from same party to agree and get the decision now." Okay. He said earlier, "The situation is hysterical. There are huge mental and physical health risks to millions from unaffordable energy and food prices." A Tory MP said he was beginning to wonder how he would afford things in the cost of living crisis. Alex Shelburne told Politics Home, "To be honest, I'm not sure how in my family we're going to pay it if it carries on going up this road." Did they not get that paid for them? I thought MPs get that paid. Friends of the Earth energy campaigner Sana Yusuf said, "Clearly not everyone is struggling with the energy crisis. These bumper profits will be greeted with disbelief by the millions of people across the UK who are faced with rocketing energy prices. The government must impose a tougher windfall tax on the energy firms." I disagree. I don't think a windfall tax is the way to do this, and I don't think cutting VAT is the way to do this either, because if you cut VAT by 5%, these companies will just put their prices up by 5%. They will absorb that immediately. The way to do this, and I've said this right from the very beginning, the only way to do this is to nationalise have a national gas and oil company. Now, I got criticised on a social media forum on Reddit. I said about in Ireland, what we need is a nationalised company, and someone went, "Well, the Irish energy industry is nationalised, dickhead." No, it's technically nationalised. They don't own the produce that comes out of the ground. They don't own the gas and the oil. They've given it away. They've allowed these companies just to take it. The Irish government are fucking terrible. They don't even take a dividend. Don't even take a royalty from the produce of those gas fields, Corrib, off there, the west coast of Mayo, and all the rest of it, Sligo. So you need to own the gas that comes out of the ground, the oil that comes out of the ground, the coal that comes out of the ground, if that's what you're going to. You need the country needs to own that. Then you can cap the price. What's your evidence for that, Andy? Well, France has my evidence for that, and other countries as well, but France was the one that I'm aware of the most. They've kept their energy price rises. I think it's capped at 8% now. It's stopped. That's it. It's 8% more than it was before. So it's because the French government owned 51% of is it EDF? Is that the name of the company? The French company. So yeah, who's this dick? Liz Truss. Now is not the time for another windfall tax. Meh. But by the way, I do agree with a windfall tax. You should have a windfall tax, but it's not the solution. Liz Truss says, "What I believe is we need to keep taxes low to attract investment into industries. Mr. Sunak has pledged to look at it again to blah blah." Fuck off, you Tory bastards. Now, five-fold profit surge at British gas owner Centrica. This is in the Times. Centrica, the owners of British Gas, is to pay 59 million to shareholders. That's wrong. It's 590 million. They've left a zero off of that. After its profits surged fivefold to 1.3 billion in 6 months. Fivefold. The profits have surged fivefold in 6 months. Try to get your fucking head around that. The FTSE 100 energy group said it would resume paying a dividend for the first time since 2019, a decision that is likely to trigger criticism at a time when consumers are facing record high energy bills. So there you go. Yeah. It's unsustainable. It is clearly unsustainable, people, isn't it? We know this. Yeah. So we're gonna call it. That's the pod. That's the podcast done. We're done. Thanks to Demo for joining me on the live stream there. I'll get this uploaded to your podcast app over the weekend. You should have it for going to work on Monday. And such a delay with the audio on this. That's bizarre. Anyway, so there we go. Listen, that's me done. Like, share, subscribe. Head over to the Patreon if you like. Follow me on Twitter, on Instagram, and do all that. Oh yeah, so I have a new single. I should have said this at the start. A new single dropping on Monday. That's I played you bits and pieces of it over the weeks. That song for Sarah O'Neill, her work, called The Dreamer's Blues. So it's going to drop on Bandcamp and Tidal, the streaming services. I don't use Spotify. I refuse to be a part of their criminal empire, so they can fuck off. So yeah, so there we go. Listen, thanks everybody, and enjoy the podcast over the week, and yeah, see you soon. Take care.